our team took over in 1994. So I think it was around May of 1994. And here we are. We're a small company. I think by that time, maybe we'd gotten up to about 48 million in sales. I don't remember exactly. And we had to sit down and try to figure out how we were going to survive as an entity. So, I'd done a lot of, studying in terms of, management offsites and planning, and I was convinced strategic planning, was the way to go, and you had to get buy-in by the management team. So we kind of all got together and said, all right, what is it going to take to survive in this industry? Because, during the 90s, you were looking at probably one of the biggest drawdowns in defense spending at that time, and, probably in U.S. history, because, the Gulf War ended, the Berlin Wall had come down, then we had the little spurt with the Gulf War in the early 90s, and then it was basically, it was like, gee, we don't need defense anymore. I mean, they were talking about they didn't even need an army anymore, and it was a whole different world. What we did was we got together and we took a look at the defense industry and how it was created, and then realized that even the large contractors became what they were through acquisitions. So we figured we weren't going to be a large contractor. So we came up with this idea of being a mid-tier contractor. That's the term we used. And we said, gee, how would you define mid-tier? And we realized that most defense contractors were little specialty companies doing less than $500 million in sales. So, we weren't unique, but we had a desire to figure out how to get to $500 million in sales. And we figured that was the only way we were going to, survive. So what we did was we said, all right, we're going to define mid-tier as $500 million in revenue and above. And we took a look at the whole universe. And that's essentially what we did. We sat through, this offsite, and we said, mid-tier companies actually play a unique role, because they can be massaged better than the large companies. They've got enough, financial and technical and management resources, so that they can put, key products, subsystems, and that kind of thing into the marketplace. So we said to ourselves, you're not really, managing one of these businesses isn't really managing a company, so to speak. It was managing a portfolio of contracts. That's how we looked at it. And we said, to get to the mid-tier, you just need more contracts. And you can do it by trying to buy into programs, but you'd never win the programs that quickly. Or you could do it through acquisition. And essentially what you were doing was buying programs. So that was the plus. But then you were also buying all these different cultures. So you had to figure out how to integrate the culture. So we became very cognizant of the fact that you just couldn't buy these companies. You had to somehow create a unique culture and kind of blend these companies with their contracts into your culture. Buying one or two things opens the door to other businesses, and those we found on our own. And then what happened was once we got larger and started making a name for ourselves, then the investment bankers start coming around, and you end up on the list when their property's being sold. You get a chance to take a look at them. And then what happens is they start to fall into your lap, and you determine which ones make sense with where we're trying to go. And we divided the company into certain segments of business, and then we tried to see what would fit in with those different segments. And so, and just as the years went on, there's just more and more things that came on the plate. Of course, as time went on, other people were doing the same thing, and some of the acquisitions got a little more expensive than they were when we first started doing it. We tried to buy things that seemed to go together, but it turned out that getting into a lot of this Army business paid off, when after 9/11. So, it really was a function of being in the marketplace on a regular basis. And we went ahead and we hired a staff of people. Originally it was just myself and our general counsel at the time. What we focused on was this concept of of trying to build a culture in the company. And that was very important because we brought in such diverse businesses. And I used to make it a point of trying to get out to all the businesses. I loved manufacturing. I loved seeing people doing things. And so we used to go out to the different businesses and talk about this great opportunity that all these people had to kind of build their own culture. Because a lot of them came out of large companies, with very diverse cultures, and very often these were little pieces that weren't very meaningful to the big guys, but they were meaningful to us. And I would tell the people, you are special to us. Well, we used to say that if we're going to grow this business, right, you have to perform on all your contracts. You got to take care of your customers, right? You got to nurture your employees, and you got to always strive to be innovative. Those were the things that we thought about, and we always stressed those points at DRS. That was what was key in putting this thing together. You always have to have that next piece of technology. You got to win that next program. It never changes. So, I think that the fact that the business is still there, and the fact that you can say that it's 50 years old, I think that means a lot. And as long as we keep the customer plugged in to what that means, so it's good to hear that things are doing well.